Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Black Advancement Book Club. We're back with our finale on Animal Farm, where we're going to be reviewing chapters 9 through 10 and then give our overall look at the book. Our ratings will be out of five, as far as how good we thought the book was. But prior to getting into that, we'll revisit where we were when we last left. The windmill had just been blown up. Um, the plot had been turned into a drug den for beer and barley, and now the animals were on the other side of it. Um, the whole thing brought up the idea in chapter 9 of whether dignity was enough. In this chapter, you also had the introduction of like the other pig, the next generation of pigs that were coming up, and them learning directly from Napoleon. And they were given more education, they were educated separately, and they were given more food and things of that nature. Um, it seemed to me, at least, that they were starting to breed kind of a caste system. What do you think? What do you think was the results of that, T?
Caste system is exactly the right way to say it. I mean, I think I had said it about some of the chapters previous, how they began separating themselves from everybody else, and becoming, kind of an elitist group all to themselves. And now they've got separate facilities, separate education, separate food. They have just gone full authoritarian mode at this point. They're just, they're the ruling class. That's what they have made themselves.
Mhm.
So what do I think about it? It's despicable, man. I mean, when you think about where things began, um, for them to end up here, well, back where they started is kind of true, but in a lot of ways, it feels worse. Like the journey that the book takes you on, this feels so much worse
Mm.
because it didn't have to be this way. It really didn't. But, what is that old saying? They say absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yep.
They have proven that throughout the chapters of this book.
They also say hindsight is 50-50.
Yes, they
Shanice.
do.
Shanice, what do you
Yeah,
think about the
I'd
idea
have
of the
to
caste system?
I have to agree with TJ on this one. It did turn into a caste system, and they basically got what they went back into what they did not want. Um, so it's basically all that for naught. To be in the same situation you started in, um, it's terrible, and you feel bad for them because they fought so hard and they thought that it was going to be different, a different outcome. And it's not, it's the same outcome.
I found it apropos that Boxer, who was kind of like almost the mascot for the worker, kind of worked himself to death.
Mhm.
And then, as opposed to them getting him the best care that they could for him being not only a war hero twice over, but also like the backbone of the entire structure, at least of the beginning of Animal Farm. They did not get him medical care. Instead, they shipped him off kind of to die and perhaps made a profit from it. And it struck me because it was like, man, that kind of feels similar to how we run stuff right now, like where we're not
Mhm.
giving people health care and stuff like that. And you have to pay an arm and a leg, in some cases, actual arms and legs, in order to try to survive in here. But it was just a lot of selling out, a lot of propaganda, a lot of we're increasing this by 500,
Mhm.
1,000%, which is something that I thought was just relegated to the book, but I mean, apparently it's not. It's something that I hear in press conferences every once in a while, uh, unfortunately now. But just speak to the how you guys feel about it from the standpoint of the worker of the farm, like the everyday person of the farm. What did you think about that, Shanice?
I thought, for Boxer to go out the way he did, it was shameful because he worked so hard and he was, I'm just going to kind of retire. And that's what he thought. And it's sad. And then he didn't even realize what was happening to him before until it was too late. Um, I thought that was crazy. And it does, like you said, I do speak to volumes to anybody that works for our nation. If you even think about the labor that Black people put into the nation
Mhm.
and the outcomes that we get. The nation was built on our backs, but we are not benefiting from that. Just like with Boxer, the farm was built on his basically on his back, and he worked it until he died, and he didn't receive the benefit, but everybody else did. So it kind of mirrors or have parallels to real life because the people that work the hardest, they don't necessarily benefit from all that work that they done, and everyone else does. In this case, the pigs did, but in our society, it's other people that don't put in the work. They benefit from it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. What do I think about how the old workers were treated? They weren't treated well, man. Um, and it really speaks to the value system, the new value system that's in place. Um, Boxer, just like all the other workers, he was sold a dream and he bought it. And he said, if I do my part, then this dream is achievable, not just for me, but for everybody. So I'm going to do my part. Unfortunately, those that he was doing his part for have zero appreciation for the average worker or the individual worker. I guess I'll say that. The workforce itself, they know that they need it, but the individuals that make up the workforce, they don't care. And the way the Boxer was treated actually is one of the most, what's the word I'm looking for, impactful things that I'll remember from this book was the way that he was treated. After all that he did. I mean, anyone that reads this book, if you remember any names out of here, Boxer is definitely one of them,
Mhm.
right? And for them to send him off, they didn't like just send him off somewhere to die. They sent him to be broken down for parts, basically. This is their all-star. This was Animal Farm, basically.
Mhm.
Like the entirety of the effort, I mean, by himself, no exaggeration, he probably was at least, 40% of the total by himself. And for them to treat him that way, it just goes to show they don't care about any of them. Uh, he was the all-star, and they still did that to him. Just burned him to the ground. It's awful.
It makes you think like if Benjamin the goat was onto something with the way that he was kind of lackadaisical about everything. And I understand that you can't run a society where everybody does not have the attitude of a boxer. You know what I mean? You have to have boxers in society, or otherwise stuff just doesn't work. But I mean, like it does make you sad because at the end of the day, there are a lot more boxers out here that end the same way than there are, people who actually get their just desserts. I thought that the ultimate insult to injury was the fact that he got carted off by other horses. That's another like wild twist of fate where you're like, yeah, that is a sick a sick thing to do, man. Shanice, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that song "Use Me Up," because
Yeah.
that's what basically he just got used and abused. But I don't think he did it. He did it willingly at first, but even in death, he's still being used. So I'm just like, he was used just as a tool, and he wasn't respected.
So I'm gonna move on to chapter 10 because quite frankly, it's just too sad to talk about the demise of Boxer at this point. Um, no retirement. The new generation didn't question the history of it, which is something that's interesting. No one saw any profit except for the military slash the dogs and the pigs slash the upper class. The lack of history and memory like created kind of a immobility and when it came to a life for the everyday animal. Animals still took pride in what Animal Farm was because they were free, but again, I don't know if they know exactly what it meant to be free. And the sheep kept on saying they basically said the quiet part out loud, and they were the ones in the room that always kind of kept the people in line with their obedience. I guess at the end of the day, I guess my question from chapter 10 is like, how big of a role do you believe them not really fully understanding the history of Animal Farm played in what's going to be the future of Animal Farm?
Did how big of a role did their ignorance play?
Hmm.
Um, well, ignorance itself was the main culprit for the entirety of what happened to them.
Mm.
Their lack of understanding of how things work, their lack of understanding of the motivations of what became the ruling class. Um, that was really what killed them. Um, uh, it's unfortunate, but and they're not understanding the history. When, are you referring to the younger class of pigs or just of the animals in general?
Just the younger classes, the younger generation, the new generation of all the animals, because people were
Okay.
dying off from the generation that basically freed them.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm not sure how many reliable sources there were anyway. I mean, their memories were so short that, you know, they probably couldn't recall what the rules were prior to them being modified. All that they know, oddly enough, is what's in place now. They don't seem
Mhm.
to have a memory. They just know that things felt like they were better before. I mean, I think that feeling is there. There are a few of them. What was the horse's name? Not Boxer.
Was it Molly, I think?
Maybe it's Muriel or
Mhm.
Muriel. Yeah, maybe
yeah.
Muriel.
Yeah.
She probably would have been the best resource. The sheep, they're not going to be able to help. The dogs, even if they knew, because they were said to be one of the smarter animals, right? They don't have any interest in giving the real truth, nor do the the pigs that are teaching them. They don't have any interest in providing the real truth. So those young pigs they're kind of stuck. I don't know how they could ever learn what the real truth was, what the real history of the animal farm was. I don't think there are any sources out there for them. So they're kind of
Uh,
doomed to continue this cycle.
And not only that, but even if they did know the history of it, will they, because they're in power, will they want to change it? Um, and the other animals, like you said, they're going to go down the same path because they didn't train independent thinkers. They didn't train people to do research. They train people to be servants, and you do as you're told. You don't question things, and if you question it, you're questioning it wrong because that's not how exactly things were. I don't think it really would have made a huge difference if they really knew the history because it's going to come off as, this is fake history. This is not the truth, even if it is the truth. So even if they really knew the history, the way that the pigs are running it, unless you have some pigs that really believe in other animals, they're going to keep it the way it is. So the history part, yes, it's good to know, but even if they didn't know it, I don't think it would change anything.
Final question, and then we'll give our grades for the book and our overall feelings for it. Do you believe that Animal Farm is doomed to not have another revolution or will have another revolution?
I think Animal Farm, the tricky thing about this is the training of the brain. Um, the way that the pigs had manipulated all the animals, I don't see rebellion because they got it so like you can't rebel. The things that they're teaching you to serve is better than to do anything else. You don't question anything unless you have some animal that can have independent thinking. I don't see rebellion. Honestly, unless one of the pigs say, "Hey, I don't like the way things are going now. I don't like my privilege, and I want to get rid of this privilege." And I think everybody should be equal. Unless you got a pig that does that, I don't see it happening with the other animals.
I'd love to say there's got to be a revolution at some point. I'm going to say there has to be at some point. It's got to be, man. Um, and it's got to come from um, Muriel as the source. Like in the very beginning, the pig Major, I believe was his name.
Old Major, yeah.
Mm.
He had a flashback in a dream of, some song that his mother used to sing. And that kind of was the spark to create all of this. My sincerest hope is that Muriel can do something like that for maybe not this generation of animals, but maybe it sparks one in the generation after. If she, on the slide and on the sly kind of gives her version of what happened and the reasons why what's going on right now is not what was meant to be for Animal Farm. That wasn't the original vision. So I don't know when, but um, I'm going to say eventually they'll get to Revolution.
So I'll close it out. I think that there will be a revolution, but it's not going to be the type that's going to make things better for everyone. I think it's just going to be a fight amongst the elites. I think the elites will
Mm.
break into two different classes. Somebody will want more power than they're able to have, and that will be the overthrow of it. And they'll galvanize some people to help them out. And as far as things getting better for the common animal in this case, and not one of the pigs, I don't foresee that. But I do foresee more turmoil going forward, but it's more of a power struggle than it would be for a revolution of some sort, unfortunately.
And yet they also introduced that they're dealing with humans now.
Yeah.
So if you're dealing with humans, you're bound to have some sort of they may want more power. So when you get rid of all men, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
who
You
knows?
never know. Good thing they didn't know anything about AI back then. Anyway, so those pigs would have had those other animals out in the heartbeat. Anyway, so that's it. So why don't we just go ahead and review it and as far as give us our grade out of a five and also your overall takeaway from it. Shanice will go with Queen Latifah rules. You go first.
I thought it was a good book. I thought it was a good book. So I'll rate it a 5 out of 5 as far as like the content of the book. It was, it was really well written. The development of the characters are really good. The storyline was really good. So the message is it's untimely because things that are happening now could relate to things that were happening way back then. So I think it's one of those books that you can continue to read because it talks about, even though it's animal, it really talks about human nature. And since humans are around now and they might be around forever, who knows? As far as, as long as the earth exists, it's always going to be a good read as long as you have people in power. Um, I think I give it a 5 out of 5 because it's like a timeless classic, and it shows a lot about human characteristics.
Um, yeah, this is a 5 out of 5. Like, this is one of the books that I go back to this book every year, and depending on how you look at it, you get different things from it, which is always the sign that something is really, really good is when you can have the same material, but you draw new things out of it over and over again. Um, the some of the things that you read, especially in the situations and circumstances we're in now, they're uncanny the way that they read in this book. I remember when the first time I was introduced to this book was in high school, and I, like probably many people, thought to myself, how could the animals have let themselves get into the situation? And what you find out is through life, you're probably not one of the pigs. You're probably one of the workers. And you look
Right.
up one day and pretty soon two legs good, four legs are bad. And you're like, how did this happen? You just kind of look up and it's kind of there. Not that you weren't, even if you were paying attention, you just didn't have much space to stop it. Um, but as far as this book, to me, it's one of my is all-time favorites. I don't know if it's a top five book ever written, but it's one of my top five favorite books that I like to read. So, Animal Farm, George Orwell. He was a fantastic author, and to me, this was his best work. So, TJ, you can close this out.
Sure. Hey, this it's a clean sweep. It's a 5 out of 5 for me. I mean, to be able to pack that much in what was it, 150 pages or something like that,
100. It was like 100 pages. Yeah,
100
100.
pages,
Yeah.
to be able to pack all of that in there. Um, this book is a resource that, like Aj mentioned, you can go back to over and over again and get something different every time you read it. But one thing is for certain that once you do read it, you never forget that you have read it. Even if you forget the specific details, the overall point of the book, the impact that it makes on you is something that will last throughout your lifetime. And when somebody brings up that book, you say to yourself, "Oh man, I need to go read that again," because it's that good of a book. Um, and it stresses so many important things about human nature and I'll say the cost of ignorance and not understanding how things work. Um, it in a lot of ways it shows that it kind of makes you complicit to what ends up ultimately happening to you if you just kind of go with the flow without understanding of what's actually being done around you and being done to you. Um, so this was to me, it's one of the more impactful books that I've read. I'm really glad that we got a chance to review it because I've wanted to read it again for a while, and this gave me a reason to do it, and I'm really happy that I did. George Orwell, well done, sir.
Yeah, man. And again, everybody, this was a Black Advancement Book Club's review of Animal Farm. Hopefully, you guys were reading along with us, and hopefully, you enjoy our review. Don't use this on your own tests. Come to your own conclusions. But if you need a quick source, these are these are good topic, good couple of episodes. So, anyway, with all that being said, until our next book review, peace and advance.
In the street looking for a brighter day. The revolution will not be televised.